what I like to say is that I was always, in every company I've been, the best friend of HR.
Right.
And to my despair, I was also oftentimes the only friends of HR.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Little Pod podcast brought to you by LittleLives. Okay, so today we actually have a very important figure over here because he is the CEO and co-founder of a company that actually does a lot of contribution towards the management of all the companies, including have simplifying all the HR workflows, ensuring that HR data are safe, and most importantly, it's to save up time of all the administrative people that are actually processing all these tasks in order to focus on the right work, right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today we have Benjamin, the CEO and co-founder of BrioHR. Hey, Benjamin, good morning.
Hey, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here with you this morning.
So I remember Benjamin just now was talking about he was traveling here with public transport, right? And how easy it is, and I was actually driving to the office every day, and it took me 90 minutes every day to reach the office, right? So I guess this is kind of a very similar situation with when it comes to HR workflow. Right. So I mean, maybe before we go into the details, right? Maybe Benjamin, can you tell us more about yourself, where you from, and what do you do? Most importantly, yeah.
Sure. I mean, it could be a long story or a shorter story depending on how we look at it. But actually, in case in these first few seconds you haven't noticed from my accent, I'm a French national, but I've been in Malaysia for the last 13 years. So I'm Malaysian by adoption, or Southeast Asian by adoption, I like to say. I started my life in France for the first few years of my life, and then started work there, started the beginning of my career there in finance, before moving to Malaysia on the backdrop, and we might come back to it if you want, but on the backdrop of a badminton career. So in France, badminton is not that mediatized.
Okay.
Yet there are a lot of people practicing it, but that's what brought Malaysia, on my radar when I was a bit younger.
Right. So was that the Dato Lee Chong Wei era, or was it earlier?
Unfortunately for me, it was a bit earlier than that.
Oh, a bit earlier than that.
So no, actually it was just earlier. It was when the Hashim brothers were basically on the top of the scenes. So it was already Misbun Sidek, the coach, who then went on to being the coach of Dato Lee Chong Wei.
Right.
But yeah, I'm a bit older than Lee Chong Wei. Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that the Malaysia badminton scene has actually brought our name, the name Malaysia to your understanding, right? And is that the only reason that you are here in Malaysia, or was there any other thing that attracted you to travel here and eventually?
So it's a mix of things. So this one being the largest contributor, the largest factor, I would say, because early on in my career, so I came here in Malaysia to train, badminton camps, to play with those Hashim brothers and so on. So which was for us almost a dream. You would train with the best in the sport and so on. But then a few years later, when I was in France and starting my career, I also had a few friends who went from France to Southeast Asia, so some in Singapore, some in Indonesia, some a bit everywhere, but some also in Malaysia. So I started to think, wouldn't it be cool to expand my horizon a bit? Then started looking for opportunities, and in the end, it's a job that brought me almost, I would say, permanently to Malaysia 13 years ago now.
Okay. All right. So you started off your career in badminton, all right? And I'm just curious, how do you end up in the software as a service industry right now? That's really huge change.
It is. So in fact, in France, badminton cannot really be a career. I mean, there are many people who actually have their career in badminton, being, going to the Olympics, fighting for the few top spots in the world. but you cannot really make a living with badminton in France as a player. Only 2 or 3 maybe can do that, and it's not at all the same level that it could be, for example, in countries like in Malaysia for the top players and so on. So classically, after my badminton career, I switched to more, normal stuff, I may say, which included, studying finance, and then starting a job with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, back in the days in France. So still a bit far from the software at the time, but this brought me then in turn to Malaysia, and that's where in Malaysia I had my first HR and people management experiences.
Okay.
So I was managing very large teams and so on. So it's not necessarily software that attracted me in the first place, but HR, people management. And that's basically then the topic that became the more and more important for me. And then I realized that, hey, it's actually what I really want to do, what I really want to focus on. How can I have the best and the biggest impact in the HR people management field? And very quickly, actually fairly naturally, software became one of the options, because with software you can actually reach a lot of people, a lot of companies, and therefore have a big impact.
Right. Okay, so I see. Okay, so I kind of like just want to make sure that the audience understand the timeline as well. So you started off as a badminton player, right? Then you came here for training, and then eventually you ended your career in the sports scene. Then you switch into HR. Okay, all right. Precisely, is it like general HR, or was it like more like a talent acquisition role?
So it's very interesting actually. So when I came to Malaysia, I was in charge of a shared services center,
Okay.
which was responsible. So I was responsible for the delivery of finance and accounting services for the subsidiaries of this large group.
Okay.
So my role, my KPI, if I may say, was more around finance and accounting.
Understand.
But my day-to-day was absolutely none of that. It was 100% managing people. It was a large team with 200 people, and what I had to do day in, day out was to ensure communications was there, training was there, onboarding was there, recruitment of course was there. So really more from a team manager, a people manager, a business unit manager perspective, more than from the HR practitioner perspective. I like to say that I still was already in love with HR, but again, more knowledgeable on the people management. But what I like to say is that I was always, in every company I've been, the best friend of HR.
Right.
And to my despair, I was also oftentimes the only friends of HR. So which I don't think is fair, and I don't think it should be the case. But HR is a difficult role, because you're at the same time helping employees, helping everyone as much as you can, but also applying and enforcing some of the rules and instructions from top. So it makes HR in the difficult position. But where I approached HR initially was from the people manager perspective.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a really good point here, because I believe in HR, right, you definitely have to be the good cop and the bad cop at the same time, and sometimes things get a bit tricky. And just now you mentioned that you manage around like you around 100 people, and to make sure that they are being taken care of, they are working well, they receive good enough onboarding, good training. Okay, what was your biggest challenge back then when it comes to situations like this?
I think the biggest challenge was not on the specific process itself, but was due to one large factor that many companies are facing, which was turnaround, employee turnaround. So the shared services center industry is an industry where the turnaround tends to be high by nature, inherently. So therefore, all those processes that you mentioned actually were super important. But I would say if I have to single out one part of the employee journey, would be recruitment and onboarding. So shared services center, you kind of need to be super productive, super efficient from day one. So it's extremely important who to hire. So of course the skills need to match exactly with what you want to achieve as a business. And then onboarding, because you have to actually make sure that those great people that you manage to get in your team will actually be well positioned to actually deliver what they are supposed to deliver.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, fast forward to BrioHR, the very first module of all that we built, that we worked on, was onboarding. You know, of all that we could do, which is very unusual when you think about every single, software there is in the space.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, onboarding is definitely not something that first came into my mind when it comes to designing and building a module for HR software. Typically, we would be thinking of like payroll, leave management, claims management to begin with, and then maybe we proceed on with like ATS, applicant tracking system and whatnot, right? And onboarding, okay, that's interesting. I think that really shows like how much you care for, the making sure that the employee are actually being trained and being informed and guided properly when they are being hired.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like one of the most important thing. And also, I would say it's a challenge that most of the companies are facing as well. Because oftentimes we have heard like, oh, I've hired this really good talent from company A, which is a big name and profiles are good. But somehow things just don't work well during the first 3 months, right? And probably onboarding it's where things gone wrong.
Yeah.
And then you just wasted your time, money, and you also wasted his talents in that sense, right? Sure. So I guess like, okay, so you have managed 100 people and you have seen like the challenges, the difficulties of it, and safely assume that this is what inspires you to start BrioHR to begin with?
Yeah, exactly. And that's really that experience which crystallized, all my experiences. Like, hey, I want to recruit. I don't have a good visibility on the pipeline. I don't even know where we are in the process. Do we have candidates for the positions we have to recruit for? Where is the information about those candidates? Then they are in, and we have so much paper, so much processes to do for the onboarding, and everything is manual. So it's difficult. So it was really coming from a pain. In fact, almost I would say naively, I didn't really know that HR software existed when when we decided with my co-founder Nabil to start BrioHR. So the way we approach the problem, as you say, is very different than most. Many stories around HR software say, I tried to build a bakery, and then I realized while doing the bakery that actually I struggled doing payroll, so I thought maybe we should automate payroll, and then this became a payroll software, then HR software. So you're totally right. That's the vast majority, I think, of the stories behind HR software today. For us, it was really like we are managing large teams with this specific characteristic, high turnover, and so on and so on. What should we do? What could we do to help other managers like us, other HR like us? Because as you said, onboarding, as an example, is the single most important process. Of course you need payroll, of course you need leave, but every new employee has to be onboarded. It's the same as every employee needs to be paid, actually. It's not less important.
Yeah.
And the first impression that an employee will have on the company will stem from where they even welcomed on their first day. Was the laptop or was the access cards ready? Was there someone to guide them through the office on day one? Most of the time, it's not the case. And most of the time, people don't really realize, basically, that the onboarding process is a process as such. So that's why, actually, many software don't even cover onboarding. That's why also it's becoming a very popular module for us. But it's because we start from our problems as managers. Then we ventured, of course, deep into the other areas. But that's really how, with our respective experiences, again, my co-founder and myself, we decided, hey, there is a problem here. We don't have the help we would need to have. And that's basically how it
right.
works.
So, and when you first started BrioHR, that was like what, 10 years ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago, right? And okay, so just curious, right? Like when you started off into your role managing 100 people, until the point where you decided to kickstart BrioHR, until today, like what have you observed in the evolution of HR in general? Like how has HR has changed so far?
I noticed a lot of changes, actually. The very beginning was, as you say, very admin focused. payroll, leave, expense claims, time and attendance, which are very important operationally. But what I've seen, over those past few years, talking to hundreds and thousands of HR professionals, people managers, and so on, what I've seen is really a realization that HR was more than admin. In many even companies which tend to have HR and admin as a job title, moved on to like people management, people and culture, these kind of things. And that's where the switch towards people management, people engagement, kind of have been have taken off, I would say, in the area of HR, with more emphasis on onboarding, with more emphasis on forward-looking performance management. Performance management, everyone dreads performance management because at the end of the year, you will be judged almost based on what you have done 11 months ago, without knowing at all what is the perception of your managers on what you have done 11 months ago, more often than not. And we've seen this shift. It's not easy because it requires like some kind of change management. This shift towards forward-looking, meaning more frequent catch-ups and check-ups. And instead of saying 11 months ago what you did was bad, it's saying, okay, how do we do better? How do we do more next month? And months after months after months. Yep. So in the end, the employee is in a much better position, is much happier and usually much more successful as well, which is for the benefit of the company. We've really seen this trend towards, hey, we need to retain our people. We need to do something with our people because it's not easy to recruit them. It's easy to lose them. Yep. So we need to fix this, and how do we do that? Better recruitment, better onboarding, better engagement throughout. Payroll is extremely important, but from the employee perspective, they'll get their pay slips and money on their account. That's all that counts. They don't really care about anything else.
I just want my cash.
Exactly. So payroll is so important for HR because it can be complex. But from the employee perspective, that's also why I didn't start with payroll. For me, payroll was, I worked in large companies. Payroll was happening, right? I didn't even know, what was happening, but I had my pay slips and my salary at the end of the month. When I switched to the other side, I understood the complexity and so on. But yeah, the real change that we've seen is really this addition, really this conscious realization that people should be managed beyond the admin aspect.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point because like what you have said, right? I remember one of the first few company that I've worked for, which is a smaller scale company, right? Whereby we do not really have a dedicated HR person. So typically the HR manager would be my boss and also the admin, right? And I don't get all those onboarding experience or even like a really good HR experience, I would say. Like whenever I have problems, when it comes to HR, I just couldn't find the right person to talk to because simply that I noticed that, what's HR to them 10 years ago was literally about, okay, is my form being filled with the right information to be submitted for all the KWSP claims and everything.
Exactly.
Right?
And you almost didn't care about what was in the form. There was no optimization of any sort. It's like there is a form, whatever, some legal compliance forms that you cannot do, but some even internal forms with almost useless things that you had to spend as an employee a lot of time to fill up, which is useless and actually just get rid of those things and so on. But it was not happening, right? It was just like, hey, that's the process.
Yeah. So I guess with BrioHR coming into the picture, I think things like this will definitely be automated because as what I'm aware, employees when they actually being hired, they will actually be able to perform self-onboarding if I'm not wrong, right? They will actually be able to fill in their own information, and the process of doing this, it's actually pretty easy, makes it very easy for not only the new employee, but also for the admins or any HR that's handling the process as well, right? Just now you mentioned about payroll, and I think this is something that our audience would definitely want to understand, right? Because we understand that, BrioHR has the onboarding features and modules to help ease the process. But when it comes to payroll, right, I guess this is one of the biggest questions that preschool operators will always have in mind, all right? Because one thing for sure is that when it comes to preschool, teachers' payment can be quite varies from in different forms. For example, there are full-time teachers, okay, and there are also teachers that are actually being counted based on attendances and whatnot. Like, just wondering, like, does BrioHR's payroll supports these variables functions?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, payroll, as I mentioned, we didn't start with it. But when we realized that it was extremely important, we actually focused a lot of energy on it, a lot of time and energy and investments on it, because indeed, doing payroll, I mean, you can have many ways of doing payroll, right? And there are many payroll software that actually won't be able to cater for companies with more than even 5 employees or 10 employees. When it comes to preschools, what we often see also is that there are many branches, not necessarily, but often you have 1, 2, 3. We have some clients with actually more than 80 branches in preschool. So actually that's even more complexity when you have all this, employee information that can change from month to month, to manage, to centralize, and so on. So the way we've built payroll is actually extremely advanced, extremely flexible to cater for the flexibility you require, be it on the, on the payroll components, on the variable items that you mentioned. So we have a timesheet, time and attendance, but also on the process of collecting and updating the data across multiple entities, even across multiple countries. So we have actually, when we realized that payroll was a big challenge, we embraced it, and actually we love it.
Right.
And we have a very strong payroll knowledge now in the company, because even myself, I attended a lot of payroll training early on to make sure I mastered at least some of the basics. Now we have actual experts in the team, obviously, to take care of that. But yeah, payroll is extremely important, and the complexity, it's almost a never-ending game. You always have something new to add and so on. There is really payroll and payroll. And both can offer a very different experience, for sure.
Yeah, so I guess, like, the complexity part of payroll is definitely on the ever-changing compliances that you have to deal with either quarterly or on a yearly basis, depending on the policies of the country, right? So I remember, I was speaking to one of our clients, right, who is a preschool operator. Okay, and as we were discussing, and he suddenly asked me this question: "Hey, Alvin, how do I calculate EPF? I'm actually having this trouble calculating EPF for my teacher, because they may have the same salary, but the rate just seems to be slightly different." And then, the HR in me, I'll just be like, yeah, it really depends on a lot of things, including if, they are married or not, how many children that they have, what's their tiering prior to this, and what tax range are they in this year. And I think, like, with a payroll system, right, this is definitely something that will be able to be automated, right? And I guess there are also a lot of schools out there right now that chose to do it manually. I've even seen clients that actually still uses Excel sheets for their payroll, and honestly, I respect that because I don't know how it's done, because there are still a lot of compliance that you will have to refer to, and therefore it means that it's like literally zero space for error.
Yeah.
And if you can achieve that, I mean, that's one.
And it's I mean, we've seen that, of course, and many of our clients used to do manual and sometimes paper. Where you have you take your ruler and then you can even check what bracket it should be for the employees and so on. Sometimes in Excel, I think companies doing that and preschool operators in the case in your example might not always realize that there are actual solutions that are affordable, which is of course extremely important for everyone, which actually are way more valuable than saving those few dollars in the by doing it manually. A compliance error can cost a lot of money when audited.
Yep.
Compliance is very difficult to maintain. We have occurrences where the annual budget, with the change in tax brackets and so on, sometimes actually is not announced, in September, October for January and the following year. But sometimes it's actually announced mid-March for yesterday.
Yeah.
And if you don't have payroll experts who are on the lookout for this and who will be able to tweak the software during that night itself, the following day you're not compliant. And I don't think that it's possible manually or in the Excel file, which is, as you say, a fairly complex Excel file. I've seen those actually. We started to make sure we understood everything by building one of those.
Yep.
It's impossible to have someone who will be as intensely focused on compliance real time than, for example, us at Brio. It's our job, right? It's the compliance aspect is something we take out. The second thing is again the flexibility. It's almost impossible to have I would say it differently. In Excel, you have the highest flexibility. You do everything you want. It's it's your software. It's not a vendor and so on. It's your thing. But when you want to have something that is sophisticated enough, it just becomes impossible to tweak because it's actually too complex.
Yeah.
And most of the HR and payroll practitioners, and I'm not myself an expert at that, are not expert in Excel, in macros, in in formulas, and it can be really complex. So definitely I would recommend against doing it manually or in Excel. But for me the value has to be seen, and the value is in the compliance, in the flexibility, in the visibility for both HR and employees and so on.
One thing that I guess a lot of bosses would really be interested on is the penalty that we have been talking about, because I've spoken to quite a lot of them, and I would say there's almost half of them are not aware that about the heftiness and also the weight of the penalty when you actually have a compliance error until you actually had one, and then you'll be like, oh my god, that's so expensive to be paid.
Exactly.
Right? And of course, like, not only just a penalty, but let's say if you did it wrong during the auditing process, then you have to, go back, reissue and everything. So your finance team, your head of finance will probably hate you for that. I'm pretty certain on that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely penalties can be very bad. We had many occurrences when we start with a new client, and we actually, by reviewing their past year information and so on, notice some errors, and then we will just help them identify and so on. Then it's up to them to decide to make the change or not. But actually, it's more common that we think mistakes in the payroll when not using the right vendor or the right software.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I mean, throughout all these years of experience, like being an entrepreneur yourself, right, and also kickstarting BrioHR, having both software as well as HR knowledge over here, like, what do you think is the most common misconception that people have when it comes to HR software?
Oh, it's interesting actually. It's of course a big part of my daily life. This kind of topic. So I think there are many. So if I can discuss maybe some important ones, is the first most obvious one is that it's all the same.
It's all
HR
the same.
software is HR software.
Okay.
But actually, there are HR software that are good for micro SMEs, some for mid-market companies, which is where we play, some for very large enterprises, and one for smaller companies being used for a mid-sized company that actually will have nothing to do and will be unusable almost. Which you might not realize, because if you don't have experience in HR software, you're like, okay, it's how it is. So the big misconception I see is that HR software is HR software. It's like you buy I don't know, a pencil is a pencil or something like that.
Yeah.
The second one that I may see is that, again, HR software is payroll, is admin. Actually, HR software, I mean, the H is human,
Yeah.
and it's not the A of admin. There could be an admin component in here,
Yeah.
which is actually a very important component of HR. But the reality is that people is extremely important. So an HR software needs to help HR not to do only what everyone else is doing, but to do it on a wider, I would say, spectrum and to help more people on more areas. And again, we talked about the onboarding.
Yep.
It's one example. There are many, but it's not only about payroll, leave, and expense claims, or time and attendance to check if someone is late. It's also about, helping your employees themselves, breeze through their employee journey, their career as well.
Yeah.
So that's maybe the two first misconceptions that I hear a lot.
And I can totally relate to that. Because when it comes to LittleLives, right, as a school management system, we do have the same kind of misconception as well. A lot of people would think like, okay, school management system, they are also all the same. They do the same thing, taking attendance and whatnot. But just like what you have said, like we also have our own segments, right? So LittleLives is really like, focused in preschools. So our product logic is more towards preschools, daily operations and whatnot. And of course, there are also other softwares that focus on like enrichment centers, on universities even, on and so on, other segments, right? And I think this is something that a lot of preschool operators, they don't see the value until they actually started to reach out and they get their hands on. I believe that would be the same case for BrioHR as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. We so first, I mean, I'm a user, I'm a parent of LittleLives, and I can attest as a software builder myself that it's amazing. But besides that, we even have some some companies using BrioHR. It's actually just a handful, but it shows using BrioHR as their almost first experience with the software, and they like it. They like the support. We are very strong in support. But then someone comes around and promise things. So they're like, okay, I might try, this other software because they promise me things that I feel would be better than, maybe Brio and so on. And actually, most of those, they came back after a few months because they just realized that, no, actually, it's just not the case that the promises, the everything and so on. So it's really, we are also laser focused on our segment, which is a pretty wide segment, by the way, and I do believe, I like to think that we are the best at it. Of course, I'm I'm maybe biased on this, but at least we strive for that.
Yep. So, speaking of getting hands-on, right? So, LittleLives and BrioHR actually has an upcoming partnership as well, whereby we actually allows existing LittleLives users to actually tap on and have an experience with BrioHR for a certain period of time. Do check out the link below in the description for more information. And if you actually would love to find out on that, right, reach out to us via sales@littlelives.com. All right, or simply just go to our website, book a demo, and we'll then show you around on these amazing partnerships.
You'll be well attended.
Okay, all right. So I think like throughout the period, right, because we have been hearing quite a lot of like questions from the industry so far, especially within the preschool industry, okay, about having HR modules within our school management system. And truth to be told, all right, LittleLives, we did consider before if we actually want to build it ourselves or not. But after a while, we were like, you know what? No. Okay, at least not now. Let's work with BrioHR to deliver the best experience. Because I always believe that, you need to have the subject matter expert to work on the right thing, right? You just can't go in as a software developer and just say, okay, I just want to build every software for every industry, and you just won't build the right software for even one industry in that case to begin with, right? So just a sharing here with everybody, right? So I have seen certain softwares with HR payroll capabilities, but does not have the ability to generate actually bank files, right, to be operated. And I think a lot of people don't know the importance of bank files over here, right? Which also a lot of admins or HRs, right, might think that the payroll process will stop after you have generated the payroll report, but disbursements is actually the most important part.
And time consuming and error prone and so on. So definitely important. Yes.
So can you tell us more about like how important a bank file is? Like how does it automate the whole process for a company? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the bank files and the bank connections when possible are extremely important. As you say, it's kind of closing the process. Like payroll is not computing the tax. Payroll is in the end getting everyone paid, including the tax department and the EPF, CPF for Singapore and so on. But at the end of the payroll cycle, some people should get the money. So the disbursement process is actually the actual last part of the payroll. And especially in Malaysia, there are so many banks. Every bank has 3, 4, 5 versions of a text file, of a bank file, sorry, depending on what payment facilities, what type of account, and so on and so on. And this alone, and you're rightly pointing on the right thing, this alone requires huge compliance, because every single bank file has to reflect specific cities, specifications of the specific banks for the specific accounts and so on and so on. And those specifications sometimes evolve as well over time. So you have also, and that's back to your point of not necessarily building the HR software in addition, is like, I agree that as a software developer, you could think that you can develop everything, but when you think about compliance, understanding the clients, you need to go so deep in all these areas that you better focus on this to deliver the best service. So for us, it's one of the key things that we do is this maintenance of the bank files. And basically what the bank files does, for those who might not be familiar with that, is that once you have computed the payroll, the taxes, who gets what in terms of payments and so on, then this bank file, which is generated by the software, will allow you to just in 2 or 3 clicks, by uploading this bank file to your bank portal, to pay everyone automatically in one go, rather than keying in, one by one the payments with the bank account and so on and so on, which I did myself, and I did myself on a 5, 10, 15 employees at first, and it was so painful actually to do 15 times the same thing, having to update the description of the payments to reflect the right month manually, and so on and so on. So the bank file really allows you to close the payroll process in 2 minutes, and that's those 2 minutes that makes the people or the organizations actually paid.
Yeah,
so that's important.
Yes. I think that like you said, right, that's the most important part, and a lot of people actually kind of like ignore it in that sense, right? So okay, so one more question here that I'm actually curious, right? Throughout the journey of starting BrioHR until right now, like what do you think is the most important skill sets or even like beliefs that you have, right, that keeps you keep going on every single day to make sure that the software is up to date, the compliance is up to date, like just what keeps you go on?
It's many things actually. I mean, I didn't even really know that when I started. I loved the fact that I could have an impact on employees and HR. I mean, HR, they are also employees. So let's say non-HR employees and HR employees. So I actually really loved that from the get-go, which got us started. But then to keep going, there are so many things. Of course, most of them are client-focused. You talk every day. We talk every day to clients, to end users, to partners, to understand how can we help. And because you feel that you can address some of those points progressively, it's just like fuel that keeps you motivated. I fixed this issue that they say they have, but they have many others. Let's fix one more. And then always a bigger and bigger impact, I would say, on the client. So that's of course the ongoing fuel. There are also some internal components. You build a team. You build a relationship with the team. The team at BrioHR, and I hope in most companies, is very engaged, motivated. They are very good. They are nice people. We like to say that we recruit nice people who want to help. That's kind of the one-liner. Nice people who want to help. We believe that this shapes the culture of BrioHR. Of course, we look at many other things like skills, experiences, and so on, but nice people who want to help. And when you're in that environment with nice people who want to help, it just makes it great, and the clients are happy, colleagues are happy, we are all happy, and in the end, that's it. So there are many things, but obviously helping clients solve one of their challenge after another, which requires hard work. So you know that's really an achievement when you actually tick off an issue that you manage to help them solve. Plus the internal component are two of the things that I would mention.
Understand. Yeah. So basically creating values and also looking into the impacts that you have actually given not only to the clients but also to your staff as well, right? To the team that you have built. And I guess that's a very good sense of achievement. And that's what keeps you going.
And it's very reciprocal. It's not only the management or the founders having an impact on the team, but for sure the team has an impact on me personally, professionally, and so on. So it's actually really a group of people aligned together, you know, to create this value that you mentioned. More than someone one way, you know, adding value to someone else.
Yeah, sure. So given that, you know, creating value, creating impact, all right, towards the society as well as also your clients, right? Like, just curious, like, can you share some success stories like from your clients that actually have been using BrioHR? Like, how did they really benefited from the whole thing, and how did that kind of like, you know, just ease up their operations or even make more money from it?
Yeah, I would have a couple that I would like to share, but if I share one, there is this company, a very traditional company in a way, like 25-30 years in the business. The average tenure and the average age of the workforce is slightly on the higher side compared to, let's say, a tech startup, for instance. And actually, it's a group with around 400 people across 8 businesses. 400 across 8 businesses, which are different from each other. So not branches, but 8 businesses. So there are hotels, there are restaurants, there are financial institutions. There is actually an educational institution, a university, and a few others. And they were doing everything manually, and they were outsourcing everything that they could outsource. And they came to us. It was actually at the fairly beginning of the COVID, you know, when the lockdown was starting and so on. And they came to us and they said, okay, we have 2 main issues, which I'm sure, you know, many will remember, hopefully in a distant path. But they were saying, we never really digitized anything, so we are not sure we can. Your software seems extremely easy to use, which is what we work hard every day, because again, it should be easy to use not only for HR who are advanced users, but also for employees, you know, on their day one and so on. So your software looks easy to use. Can you confirm that we would be able to make a huge shift from very little digitization to fully digitized when it comes HR? And the second thing that they said we need to make sure we are on top of our costs. And today we outsource many things, and we would like to see if we could insource some of the things without hiring people.
Understand.
And so we said, yeah, of course, we built BrioHR for that. We think we can help you. And within 2 months, we were live on the HQ, so it was kind of the first step, which was 50 people out of the 400. And within 2 months after that, we were live on the full 400 users across business units, etc. So this company became fully digitized, fully in control of their operations, made a lot of savings by using BrioHR. They are still a client and a happy client as of today, and I'm of course super proud of that.
Yeah,
that's really the you know, one of the examples that actually we can help.
Yeah, that is actually a very good story, because most of LittleLives clients, right, if most of the thing that we have heard from the ground is that adaptability has been a concern, right? Whether if, you know, I'm not sure if I want to use this software because, you know, my teachers might not be able to adapt to it, or, you know, I just don't know how to use it, right? So does BrioHR provides training, onboarding as well for the clients?
Yeah, actually we place a lot of emphasis on the new client onboarding. So usually the process is that there will be a dedicated project manager. We will actually follow the full implementation and manage the data gathering, the information gathering, what you would like to do with BrioHR actually. And then we'll not only do it all for you in terms of the data migration and setup, but also along the way show you how it's done. So during the implementation, you are trained how to use even some settings and so on, in case you want to change afterwards by yourself. But very importantly, so we also provide training. We are an HRDC certified training provider, so we actually have online and or in-person training on using BrioHR, but also on other HR processes if needed. We discuss with clients what are their needs. But what's very important is that even once you have started using BrioHR, a month in, 3 months in, 1 year in, you might again go to the settings and play around yourself, but you can also very easily reach the live chat support. And we will always be extremely generous with our time, and at no extra cost, if I may say, it's important. But we will always be extremely generous with our time to answer a question. So even if you had a training on this as part of the implementation a couple months before and so on, we will always be super reactive and very happily explaining again. Maybe you have a change in the HR team members and so on, so we will be happily also explaining it again. Also doing it for you, but we like, even if we do it for you for the sake of speed, we also like, by doing so, also show you how it's done. So just in case, next time you have an urgent need and you can do it by yourself. But yeah, we are extremely strong and focusing on this experience actually. We believe support is as important as the software. So from day one, we have insisted and invested on the support, and of course the software itself. We work hard every day to make it look so simple, even though behind it's extremely advanced, extremely complex. But on the surface, it needs to look simple for the users to not need a training to apply for leave, for instance.
Got it.
Or to submit an expense claims. But of course, some settings can be fairly advanced, as I mentioned, in terms of payroll and so on.
Yeah. So basically keeping the interface very simple and straightforward so that we pretty much monkey-proof it in that sense, right?
Exactly.
Okay, sure. So I think it's really happy, to have this conversation here today, because I think a lot of our clients would be wondering what's LittleLives and BrioHR is doing, and this is what we're exactly doing here. We're joining forces in a way whereby we do the things that we are good at respectively. Right, we join forces in terms of a partnership, and that's where we'll be able to provide the best value of both different aspects to the same user, right? Without having to worry about, are you really good at it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to HR management, HR softwares, right? Like what we have just discussed just now. Things can get a bit complicated, right? Same goes to school management as well. Because like I've mentioned earlier as well, it depends on the segments. The logics can be extremely different, right? And also the timing of which workflow to begin with, and where do you end, and what kind of reports do you need, right?
I can imagine.
It's really it has to be catered to the respective segments depending on which you are at.
Yep.
Okay, right. So I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, Ben. Yeah. So rapid fire questions. Basically, you have only less than 5 seconds to think, and you have to answer me
that's
almost immediately. Okay. Yeah. Just to kind of help our audiences to know you better, lah. Like what kind of a person you are, what's your favorite stuff and all. Okay.
Okay. Let's
right.
try.
You good? You good to go?
Let's try.
Okay. Sure. So rapid fire question number 1. What's your favorite fictional character and why? 1, 2, 3.
I would say Sangohan from Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. So I don't know. I don't know if everyone knows about this, but the creator of actually Dragon Ball, passed away a few days ago. Actually, so it was a news that was actually fairly sad for me, as Dragon Ball was my childhood, in fact. So I always dreamed of being Son Gohan.
Okay.
I know a lot of people might say Son Goku, Son Gohan's dad, but for me it was Son Gohan, and it's really about, of course, the superpowers that when you're a kid you're super excited about and so on, but also the resilience. I mean, they get beaten up quite often, right? And but they go back at it and all of that to basically protect the world, their families, their friends, and so on. So I kind of like the concept. When I was a kid, it was really more about the superpowers and so on. But as I reflect, as an adult, definitely you realize that you were also attracted by this, white knight kind of mission that they had. So yeah.
So it's more towards the resilience of how you are dealing with life and how persistent you are, right?
Exactly.
Coming from the character of Gohan.
Exactly,
right?
and what impact you are trying to have. Is it, some people might put their resilience sometimes, unfortunately, for the not so good, but they are doing it for the good, and I think that's also what I like with the LittleLives BrioHR partnership, is that we started BrioHR to help companies and to help employees having a better, work experience, daily experience, and so on. LittleLives, I'm amazed by your mission. Especially preschools, right? Out of all educational institutions, focusing on preschools and making sure that basically children, toddlers will have the best education, that their teachers would be in the best positions to teach, and so on. So it kind of echoes a bit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, sure. So, yeah, Gohan. Coincidentally, Gohan is also my favorite fictional character.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so the second rapid fire question. All right. What is the proudest moment that you have had in your career so far? 1, 2, 3.
Pressure on. It's a bit difficult, I'd say, to single out maybe one single moment, at least in this short time span. I think the few moments in my career that I was and that I am proud of, came as a multiple building blocks, I would say, of the whole career over time, and you don't necessarily realize, that it's a success on the spot. But then again, as you reflect and as you think about what brought you where you are and so on, some of those moments can surface. So of course I'm trying to buy a bit of time to try to single one. But I guess the first maybe defining moment for me in my career is maybe that moment where I was maybe 1 year into my journey in Malaysia. So it was like 12 years ago. And my manager at the time, Bertrand Le Guillou, kudos to Bertrand if he listens, but entrusted me with actually a position which involved managing a fairly large team of people, even though I didn't have this experience of managing people before. I had managed like small project teams and so on, but I was fairly young. I was actually pretty much the youngest of the team, even though I was leading that team, which was at the time around 45, 50 people and growing. And actually, that's what exposed me to what I became today, like people management. My passion is really about this. So I think when we talk about defining moments in my career, it makes me think that it's moments where people trusted me or us or BrioHR. Today, every time a new client signs up, I'm actually extremely proud. Some clients are more renowned than others, but actually every client, matters. And we work with companies like yours. I talk about your mission that I love. We have many NGOs in our client rosters as well, many national institutions and so on. So it's always amazing for me to see people trust the work that we put in, actually day in, day out, and that kind of makes me proud. But maybe the first one I mentioned, it's actually maybe a step change in my career, I would say.
Understand, right? So it links back to the ability and also the opportunity given to actually create more impact and value.
Exactly.
Right.
An opportunity that, and I think we have to say it even in all humility, opportunities that you kind of create for yourself by showing up, doing the job, being a decent person, and so on. And I do believe that if you do that, you can have the opportunities. Yet some extremely good, driven people don't necessarily have the opportunities for many reasons. So of course there is a part of luck, being right there, right then, and so on. But it can really change someone's trajectory when the right opportunity is given to the right deserving people. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay, so the last question for today, right? I think would be an interesting one, because in LittleLives, right, most of our users deal with a lot of children. So if you were to describe your job to a 5 years old, how would you describe it?
Interesting. So I actually I have a 6-year-old daughter, so I kind of given it a try. The first thing that I'm very lucky with is that it's a software. It's also an app, that you can have on your phone, and it makes it tangible. I can show it. So the first thing I would do is first I say, because kids at this age, they might have been exposed to educational games, kids games, picking the phone of their parents, so they kind of know tapping here and there and so on. So the first thing I say is like, hey, dad is working on this. Have a look. It's like a bit the games that you sometimes play on, but in my game, I help parents go on holidays, and I help parents get the money they need in order to pay for your toys, for your food, and for your holidays. So that's in very simple terms, right?
Yeah.
Because going into the HR things and so on at 5 years old, you don't want to actually spoil their mind, right? You prefer to preserve some kind of innocence. But
Yes.
actually, that's where I would stay, and then I will tap around and so on. So yeah, that's how I
Yeah,
think.
I love the answer, like helping Papa Mama to go holiday, help Papa Mama to get the money. Yeah, I think that's a very good answer over here, right? So yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, today we have like Ben joining us here. Okay, from BrioHR, and I believe we have spoken a lot about like kind of like the insights of what organizations should be aware of when it comes to HR, particularly for preschools operators, that if you have yet to tap onto any automations of software for HR, right, I think this is the time that you should look at it, because as we mentioned as well, a lot of changes has happened in the HR landscape for the past 10 years, and I believe the transformation will still be happening every day as we pass.
I believe so.
And I think if there's one takeaway for me today, right, it's actually about the compliance that you have mentioned, right? So a lot of people thought that compliance will be released in advance, right, for you to prepare, but
I wish.
for some of the time, or most of the time, right, they might release compliance that will require you to be compliant like literally 24 hours later. And if that happens, then you are basically exposed to the risk of penalty, or even like compliance error that might cause your disbursement error as well when it comes to the salary. Okay, yeah. So this is the kind of values that LittleLives is trying to bring, not only just via partnerships like this, but also in LittlePod itself. We're trying to share all this knowledge that you might not be able to hear on a daily basis or anywhere else. So if you do have any topics that you would love us to cover, or any companies or any people that you would love us to invite and join us over here, comments below and give it a like, thumbs up, and share it out. Then we'll be able to kind of like find and get the people to join us in our next episode. Okay, so thanks a lot, Ben. Thanks for today, and I believe a lot of insights have been given.
Thanks a lot, Alvin, and the LittleLives team for having me. And I hope it was helpful. I hope it was useful. But I enjoyed my time with you.
All right. So don't forget to go to the description below to check out the offerings and also the partnerships between LittleLives and BrioHR. Don't miss it out. Okay. See you in the next episodes, and thanks for your time. Bye-bye. Bye.